Good morning, beautiful people, and happy Thursday. Today, we are diving into a story that most of the media is barely touching. A federal immigration sweep in Minnesota that uncovered fake marriages, forged death certificates, and blatant fraud inside our immigration system. Now, the federal agents behind this operation say what they found is just the tip of the iceberg. Let's break down exactly what was discovered, why it matters, and what it says about the state of our immigration system today. Welcome to Nelly Miranda. But before we get into today's video, please make sure you like and subscribe to support the channel. So here's the background. Federal authorities in Minnesota just wrapped up a multi-agency sweep they called Operation Twin Shields. The goal was simple: go after immigration fraud. And in just over a week, agents investigated around 1,000 different cases involving immigration fraud. And what did they find? Blatant, in-your-face scams, sham marriages, forged documents, fake death certificates, the kind of fraud that undermines the entire system. Watch.
Julie, the director of the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services said they identified 1,000 immigration cases in the Twin Cities with red flags, indicating possible fraud such as marriage fraud. They were able to look into about 900 of them and say they found 275 cases of suspected fraud.
What they found should shock all of America.
Joseph Edlow, the director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, in a press conference announced findings of an investigation dubbed Operation Twin Shield.
Our officers encountered blatant marriage fraud, visa overstays, people claiming to work at businesses that can't be found, forged documents, abuse of the H-1B visa system, abuse of the F-1 visas, and many other discrepancies.
Immigration officials describe marriage fraud as a sham marriage that allows a non-citizen into the U.S. if their so-called spouse, a U.S. citizen or green card holder, petitions for their immigration. Edlow gave some examples of what they found.
In one case, officers identified an alien who had overstayed his visa waiver, who was the son of a known or suspected terrorist on the no-fly list. He had previously been found to have engaged in marriage fraud, which resulted in the denial of several immigration benefit requests. He was arrested and is now presently being returned to his country of origin.
Despite allegedly finding 275 cases of suspected fraud, ICE officials only made 4 arrests. Officials say more investigation will be done before referrals for charges.
Under President Trump's leadership,
Edlow, a Trump administration appointee, had strong words for the Biden administration.
We found troubling patterns with the Uniting for Ukraine program that should have raised serious concerns under other administrations, such as an individual filing to sponsor more than 100 aliens, and organizations sponsoring hundreds. We are continuing to investigate these cases.
One of the most shocking cases involved a Kenyan national who literally bought a fake death certificate for about $100. He used it to claim his wife had died. Except she was very much alive, living right here in Minneapolis and raising 5 children. But it gets worse. That same man had another wife in Sweden with 3 more kids. Like, he's not just bending the rules a little bit. He is completely shredding them without a care in the world.
I want the American people to know that we are declaring war on immigration fraud.
Federal authorities are cracking down on immigration fraud. You heard it there, here in the Twin Cities. They say they've uncovered things like marriage fraud, visa overstays, and forged documents.
Fox 9's Mike Manzoni was at this news conference this afternoon. And Mike, investigators say that they looked at more than 1,000 cases as part of this crackdown.
Hey, Kelsey and Randy, they ended up arresting 4 people and referred dozens of others to ICE. These are 2 photos of people they arrested, 2 of the 4 arrests during what they called Operation Twin Shield. It happened over the span of the last week and a half. Investigators say they found at least 275 cases of suspected immigration fraud. One case involved a man who admitted to using a fake death certificate from Kenya to convince the feds that his wife was dead, even though they say she's alive and lives here in Minneapolis. In another case, a suspected terrorist son overstayed his visa, they said, and committed marriage fraud. They arrested 4 undocumented immigrants and issued notices to appear or referred immigrants to ICE in 42 other cases.
These are not victimless crimes. Every case of fraud we uncover damages our national security, undermines the integrity of our immigration system, and as I just gave you an example, has real consequences. At the end of the day, immigration fraud will not and will no longer be tolerated in this country.
And again, it wasn't just fake marriages. Authorities discovered people misusing the Uniting for Ukraine program, which was designed to provide humanitarian relief. One so-called sponsor claimed to have sponsored more than 100 different people. Think about that. How is one person able to legally vouch for 100 people without raising red flags? Like, that's not compassion at all. That is blatant exploitation. Here's a refresher on what the program was and or intended to do. Take a listen.
President Biden's plan to welcome up to 100,000 Ukrainian refugees to the U.S. is taking a big step forward today. This morning, a new website went online to help expedite the U.S. immigration process for Ukrainians fleeing the Russian invasion by allowing Americans to sponsor them. It's all part of the White House's Uniting for Ukraine program. For more on this story, we want to bring in NBC News justice correspondent Julia Ainsley. Good morning, Julia. First off, how does this program even work and why now?
Well, this program is set up for Americans, whether they personally know Ukrainians abroad or not, to be able to sponsor Ukrainians to come to the United States. They need to show that they could financially sponsor that person and that there's someone who is not going to use this for ill intent. Again, they would have to be vetted to make sure they're not trafficking in Ukraine for labor purposes. The first people in line to try to use this will be family members, people who have family members who have fled Ukraine and they're trying to bring them to the United States.
Now, here's the kicker. After all that, 1,000 cases, 900 people investigated, only 4 arrests were made. Just 4. How the heck is that even possible? Did you find fraud or not? So, yes, 42 people were issued notices to appear in immigration court, but that's a civil process, not a criminal prosecution, which means a lot of these cases may get tied up in court for years, delayed through appeals, or quietly swept under the rug. This is the heart of the problem. We spend taxpayer dollars on these big corporations. We uncover fraud that anyone can see is intentional. But when it comes to hold these people accountable, the system just doesn't deliver. And why? Because our immigration courts are overwhelmed. Because the legal bar for proving fraud is sky high. What is the reason for this? And this isn't about demonizing immigrants. America has always been a nation who welcomed immigrants that followed the rules. But when fraud becomes this easy, when people can fake a death certificate or sponsor 100 people without consequence, we are not running an immigration system. We're running a scam at the expense of the people who come here legally and the citizens who pay the price. There must be more resources for investigators and prosecutors to actually follow through when fraud is uncovered. Also, humanitarian sponsorship programs must have stricter oversight, because if one sponsor can slip through the cracks with 100 cases, that's just the beginning. And lastly, maybe we need stronger penalties, because right now the worst outcome in many of these cases is deportation, and that's not really a deterrent. In light of all the widespread immigration fraud happening in Minnesota, the DOJ is suing Minnesota, but both Jacob Fry and Melvin Carter said they're backing their immigrant neighbors till the end. Watch.
The state of Minnesota, along with the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, are being sued over immigration enforcement policies.
U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has announced the 34-page lawsuit saying that, quote, Minnesota officials are jeopardizing the safety of their own citizens.
Our Barrett Leone joining us from the live desk this morning as Twin Cities leaders, Barrett, react to those claims.
Yeah, that's right. Strong words from the mayors of both Minneapolis and St. Paul last night in response to the filing. The lawsuit directly names Minnesota, both Twin Cities, Hennepin County, and the sheriff there, and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. The lawsuit says that sanctuary city policies are illegal under federal law and is asking a judge to invalidate sections of the state constitution and city codes. Both Minneapolis and St. Paul have city ordinances that prohibit cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. Federal prosecutors claim the policies are unconstitutional, adding the ordinances, quote, results in the release of dangerous criminals from police custody who would otherwise be subject to removal. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey is vowing to defend the city's immigrant communities. In a statement, he said Minneapolis will not back down. Minneapolis will always stand with our neighbors over Trump's politics of fear. A similar message from St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter. In a statement, he said, city employees don't work for the president. We work for the people who live here. We will stand with our immigrant and refugee neighbors, no matter how many unconstitutional claims the White House makes. Now, it is important to note that the state of Minnesota has no law making it a sanctuary state. We also know that U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services will be hosting a press conference today in Minneapolis related to an immigration fraud detection operation.
Federal agents called the Minnesota sweep just the tip of the iceberg. And if they're right, that means fraud is happening all across the country at levels that we cannot even imagine. This isn't about left or right. It's about law and order. It's about whether our immigration system means anything or whether it's just paperwork for anyone willing to cheat. So I want to hear from you. Do you think cases like this are isolated? Or is immigration fraud far more widespread than we're being told? And what should Congress do to fix it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, Corey Lewandowski, I think that's how you pronounce it, former Trump campaign manager and now DHS advisor, just announced that ICE will be at the Super Bowl. That's right. So immigration enforcement will be at the biggest sporting event in America. And here's the kicker. He said this specifically in connection with Bad Bunny's halftime performance.
White House officials say ICE agents will be at the Super Bowl this year. The big game is coming to Levi Stadium in Santa Clara in February. Special government employees at the Department of Homeland Security, Corey Lewandowski, made the comments on a podcast saying there is nowhere that you can provide safe haven to people who are in the country illegally. Not the Super Bowl, not anywhere else.
So the 2026 Super Bowl is happening at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California. And Bad Bunny is set to headline the halftime show. Lewandowski said, quote, "There is nowhere you can provide a safe haven to people in this country illegally. Not the Super Bowl, nowhere. We will find you, apprehend you, and deport you." Watch.
There is nowhere that you can provide safe haven to people who are in this country illegally. Not the Super Bowl and nowhere else. We will find you. We will apprehend you. We will put you in a detention facility, and we will deport you. So know that that is a very real situation under this administration, which is completely contrary to how it used to be.
He also blasted the NFL, saying it is shameful to put someone on stage who, in his words, seem to hate America. So this isn't just about immigration enforcement. It's about culture and who gets to represent the United States on our biggest stage. Now, to be clear, Bad Bunny himself cannot be deported. He's a U.S. citizen. The issue here is fans who may be in the country illegally. But how do you even enforce that at a 70,000-seat stadium? Random checks, sweeps through the crowds. That's where critics say that this is headed for trouble, with accusations of racial profiling and constitutional violations. That America is serious about enforcing immigration law, even at its biggest cultural event. But of course, this is risky. I don't know, because if ICE mishandles this and detains even one U.S. citizen by mistake, it'll be all over the headlines. Civil rights groups are already calling it unconstitutional. And imagine the optics if television cameras show people being escorted out of the stadium during the game. That is a PR disaster waiting to happen for both the NFL and the administration. Now, do you think ICE at the Super Bowl is necessary enforcement, or is this government overreach that could backfire? Let me know in the comments. And if you got any value from this video, please make sure you like and subscribe to support the channel and ring the bell so you never miss any updates. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.